Most people know the Bee Gees from their disco era. Stayin' Alive, How Deep Is Your Love, the white suits and the falsetto. But they recorded well over 200 songs across 5 decades, and most of them sound nothing like what you'd expect. Here are the Bee Gees, 15 weird songs you didn't know. Number 15, New York Mining Disaster, 1941, by Bee Gees.
Have you seen my wife, Mr. Jones?
New York Mining Disaster, 1941, was the Bee Gees' debut single, released in April 1967 by Polydor Records. It was the record that introduced them to the world, and it is one of the stranger ways any band has ever chosen to announce itself. The song is written from the perspective of a miner trapped underground in a cave-in, speaking directly to a rescue worker and asking him to go and tell his wife what has happened. It is quiet, claustrophobic, and deeply mournful, with no conventional chorus and no resolution.
Do you know what it's like on the outside?
Barry Gibb has said that he and Robin wrote it during a power cut in their flat, with the darkness feeding directly into the song's mood. The recording at IBC Studios in London used a Jew's harp, a string quartet, and a deliberately sparse arrangement. When the record was sent to American radio stations, some DJs assumed it was a new Beatles single and played it on that basis. The band had no US profile at the time, and the similarity of their harmonies was close enough to generate genuine confusion. The song reached number 14 on the Billboard Hot 100 and gave the Bee Gees their American start. It set an early precedent for the band being genuinely difficult to categorize.
Have you seen my wife, Mr. Jones?
Number 14, Every Christian Lionhearted Man Will Show You, by Bee Gees.
Every Christian lion.
This track appeared on the Bee Gees' debut international album, Bee Gees First, in 1967, and it stands as one of the most unusual things the band ever recorded in the first half of their career. The song is a full psychedelic experiment, an approximately 3.5-minute piece featuring layered vocals, distorted guitar, reversed tape effects, and a lyrical concept so abstract that it has resisted confident interpretation for decades.
Every Christian lion.
It was written primarily by Barry Gibb and represents a deliberate attempt to engage with the British psychedelic scene that was in full bloom in mid-1967, the same year as Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. The Bee Gees recorded Bee Gees First in the weeks immediately following that album's release, and the influence was audible throughout. Every Christian Lionhearted Man was their furthest reach into that territory. The song was never released as a single and received no significant radio airplay. It functions today primarily as evidence of how broad the band's early ambitions were. That the same group who would spend the next decade moving through ballads, orchestral pop, soft rock, and eventually disco, were already experimenting with studio effects and lyrical obliqueness before most of their contemporaries had even caught up to the mid-1960s.
Every Christian lion.
Number 13, I Started a Joke, by Bee Gees.
I started a joke, which started.
I Started a Joke was released in November 1968 and reached number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100. It has since been covered by an extraordinary number of artists, recorded for film soundtracks, and used in television programs across decades. It is, by any measure, one of the most emotionally effective ballads in the Bee Gees' catalog. It is also, on close attention, one of the most disorienting.
I started to cry, which started.
The song is sung by Robin Gibb, whose lead vocal was more nasal and trembling in character than Barry's, and whose delivery gave the song an air of genuine distress rather than performed sentiment. The lyric describes someone whose actions seem to cause suffering to everyone around them. They started a joke that set the whole world crying, and who only realizes at the end, in death, what they were actually doing. Robin Gibb said in a 1997 interview that the song came to him while he was on a flight and fell into a dream, that the chorus arrived in his head complete, as if it had always existed. He woke up and wrote it down. Whether or not that account is fully accurate, the song has a quality of having arrived from somewhere else entirely, finished and self-contained, and slightly too dark for the pop chart it appeared on. It has outlasted nearly everything else in the Bee Gees' late 1960s catalog in terms of how often it still reaches new audiences.
I started a joke, which started...
Number 12. Lamplight by Bee Gees. Lamplight was released in January 1969 as the B-side of First of May, one of the Bee Gees' most remembered ballads, which means that a large number of people who owned that single flipped it over and found something they likely did not expect. The song appeared on the Odessa double album and was actually released as the A-side of the single in Germany. It is a Baroque pop piece built on harpsichord, string arrangements, and Robin Gibb's unusual lead vocal, delivered in a style that occupies the space between chamber music and Edwardian drawing room balladry. The lyric is about a man waiting by lamplight for someone to return, and it is constructed with enough formal care that it sounds less like a pop song and more like an art song that accidentally ended up on the same record as everything else. The Odessa album from which it comes is itself one of the most underappreciated double albums of the late 1960s, a 2 LP set with a red velvet cover and flocked lettering that was packaged as a deliberate artistic statement. Lamplight is one of its quieter entries, tucked away on a side of the record that most casual listeners never reached. For those who did, it has a quality that is difficult to find anywhere else in the Bee Gees' output. Number 11. Odessa, City on the Black Sea by Bee Gees. The title track of the 1969 double album Odessa runs for approximately 8 minutes, and it is genuinely one of the most operatic things the Bee Gees ever committed to tape. The song tells the story of a shipwreck survivor, a man washed up on ice with only a sheepskin coat, and a woman named Sarah, having survived the sinking of a ship named the Verona. The setting appears to be the 19th century. The instrumentation includes flamenco guitar, an orchestral string arrangement, a banjo, a tuba, and a brass section, moving through musical sections like a film score rather than a pop record. Barry Gibb has described the album and this title track as the Bee Gees' attempt to make their own Sgt. Pepper, a record that would stand as a complete artistic statement rather than a collection of singles. The fact that it produced one of the band's most distinctive catalog entries and is still almost entirely unknown to general audiences speaks to how completely the Saturday Night Fever era overshadowed everything before it. The song was never a single and received no radio play. It is 8 minutes of orchestrated Victorian maritime tragedy delivered by three brothers from Manchester. As a piece of music, it should not exist, and it is remarkable. Number 10. Don't Forget to Remember by Bee Gees. Don't Forget to Remember was released in July 1969 and reached number 2 in the UK. It is a country song. This is not a metaphor or a loose description. The Bee Gees released a straightforward country-influenced record, complete with pedal steel guitar and a Nashville-adjacent arrangement, and it became one of their biggest UK hits of the period. The song appeared on the Cucumber Castle album, which was recorded during a period of considerable internal tension in the band. Robin Gibb had temporarily departed to pursue a solo career, meaning the album was largely a Barry and Maurice project with various collaborators. The country direction was unusual enough that some critics dismissed it as an opportunistic imitation of the American market. The British public, meanwhile, made it a top 5 hit in multiple European territories. For anyone who encounters it for the first time expecting the falsetto disco sound the Bee Gees became known for, Don't Forget to Remember is genuinely disorienting. The same band that would be defined by the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack was, a decade earlier, making competitive entries in the country genre, and the vocal performances, particularly Barry's warm baritone, are strong enough that the song holds up entirely on its own terms.
Don't forget to
Number 9. Nights on Broadway by Bee Gees.
On the nights on Broadway.
Nights on Broadway is notable for a specific, documented, almost accidental piece of musical history. The song was recorded at Criteria Studios in Miami in January 1975 as part of the main course sessions with producer R.F. Martin. Martin wanted something more from the chorus. He asked if one of the band members could scream during it to add energy. Barry Gibb began trying to hit higher and higher notes in response. What emerged was a falsetto that Barry had not previously known he possessed. The falsetto became the defining sonic element of the Bee Gees' commercial peak. Every chart-topping song from the Saturday Night Fever era, Stayin' Alive, Night Fever, How Deep Is Your Love, and dozens of others, was built on a vocal technique that Barry Gibb effectively discovered by accident in Miami, while a producer asked him to try screaming. He has said in interviews that he genuinely did not know the sound was there until that session. Nights on Broadway itself reached number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100 in December 1975, a significant but not defining hit in the context of what followed. It is the song where the entire sonic identity of the later Bee Gees was invented, more or less spontaneously, on a recording session day in Miami.
On the nights on Broadway.
Number 8. Edge of the Universe by Bee Gees. Edge of the Universe appeared on main course in 1975 and was released as the B-side of Nights on Broadway. Rolling Stone critic Stephen Holden called it a slice of dumb psychedelia in his contemporary review, a description that correctly identifies what the song is doing while missing why it is interesting. The song is a genuinely odd late-period psychedelic experiment, the band revisiting the sound they had briefly explored in 1967 with Every Christian Lionhearted Man, but now within the funkier R&B influenced production that R.F. Martin had helped them develop at Criteria Studios in Miami. The combination does not entirely cohere, which is part of what makes it memorable. It sounds like a band mid-transformation, pulling its earlier experimental impulses into a sound that was about to become something far more commercially dominant. Recorded in one session on January 30th, 1975, the same day as Jive Talkin' and Fanny, Be Tender With My Love, it represents the band at the moment of reinvention, experimenting in multiple directions before the falsetto and the disco sound crystallized into a clear path. Number 7. Fanny, Be Tender With My Love by Bee Gees. Fanny, Be Tender With My Love was released as a single in December 1975 and reached number 12 on the Billboard Hot 100. It is one of the earliest recordings to feature Barry Gibb's falsetto as the lead vocal, rather than simply a backing element, making it a direct predecessor to everything that would follow in the Saturday Night Fever era. The production was by R.F. Martin, working with the band at Criteria Studios in Miami, and the arrangement built around Blue Weaver's keyboards gives it a softness that the later disco recordings would mostly replace with harder rhythmic production. The song's title caused some mild confusion in British markets, where Fanny carried a very different colloquial meaning than in American English. The band has addressed this in interviews with evident amusement, noting that the title was entirely innocent in intent, and that the British reaction to it was an unforeseen consequence of the Atlantic cultural gap. What makes the song particularly interesting in the context of the Bee Gees' career is how it bridges their earlier sound, the orchestral pop of the Odessa period, the soft rock of main course's country-influenced tracks, with the R&B and soul production that would carry them to their commercial peak. The falsetto is there, prominent and confident, but the song around it is still relatively gentle. Number 6. He's a Liar by Bee Gees.
He's a liar.
He's a Liar was released in August 1981 as a single from the album Living Eyes, and it went to number 30 on the Billboard Hot 100. It is one of the most sonically jarring entries in the Bee Gees' catalog, a fully committed synth-pop record with a cold, electronic production aesthetic that sounds more like a contemporary of Gary Newman or Ultravox than anything the Bee Gees were associated with. The Living Eyes album arrived at a difficult moment. Disco had collapsed spectacularly in public perception following the Disco Demolition Night event at Comiskey Park in Chicago in July 1979, when a promotion staged by DJ Steve Dahl resulted in a riot and the cancellation of a baseball doubleheader. The backlash against disco was severe and personal for the Bee Gees, who were its most visible symbols. Their U.S. profile dropped sharply, and Living Eyes was their attempt to find a new direction. He's a Liar represents one of the more interesting efforts from that search, a song that genuinely commits to an electronic sound that was commercially viable in 1981 without quite landing in the pop mainstream. The album sold poorly in the United States, and the song is largely forgotten outside of dedicated fans. For anyone who finds it now, it lands as a fascinating artifact of a very specific cultural moment. Number 5. ESP by Bee Gees. The Bee Gees released ESP in September 1987, their first studio album in 6 years, and the title track opened it with something unusual, a concept song about extrasensory perception, built on late 1980s pop production, with a chorus that feels simultaneously enormous and slightly surreal. The song concerns a couple, one of whom perceives things that cannot be rationally explained and knows things about the other person that they have not been told. The album marked the band's return to commercial relevance after the collapse of their commercial profile in the early 1980s, and it reached number 1 in Australia and several European countries. The title track itself was performed in a style that felt closer to the arena pop of mid-1980s acts than to anything the Bee Gees had previously attempted, with a production density that sat comfortably beside contemporary recordings by artists like Whitney Houston or Michael Jackson. Barry Gibb has noted that the album's concept, the idea of a band exploring paranormal themes across multiple tracks, was unusual for them and represented a deliberate attempt to create something with thematic coherence rather than simply a collection of singles. The title track is the clearest expression of that ambition, and it stands as one of the stranger entries in a career that had already accumulated a considerable number of surprises. Number 4. Paying the Price of Love by Bee Gees. Paying the Price of Love was released in August 1993 from the album Size Isn't Everything, and it reached number 23 on the Billboard Hot 100 while performing significantly better in the UK, where it peaked at number 23 on the singles chart after considerable radio support. The song is built around a shuffling, blues-influenced groove that fits none of the categories most people associate with the Bee Gees. By 1993, the Disco Association had receded far enough into cultural history that the band had an opportunity to be heard on somewhat different terms. Size Isn't Everything was produced by Brian Rawling and the Bee Gees themselves, and it represented a shift toward a more guitar-driven, organic-sounding production than the synthesizer-heavy recordings of the 1980s. Paying the Price of Love was the most direct expression of that shift on the album, a song that drew on American R&B and soul in a way that was more Muscle Shoals than Miami disco. The album has been re-evaluated significantly since its release, with several critics noting that it contains some of the strongest songwriting the Bee Gees produced in their later career. Paying the Price of Love is frequently cited in those reassessments as the album's most immediate track. Number 3. Alone by Bee Gees. Alone was released in February 1997 from the album Still Waters, and it reached number 5 in the UK. The song is a stripped-back ballad, acoustic guitar, spare production, and 3-part harmony delivered without the falsetto theatrical device that had defined so much of their work. It sounds, in the best possible way, like the Bee Gees singing a song around a single microphone. The Still Waters album marked another commercial resurgence for the band, followed by a world tour that played to stadium audiences across multiple continents. Alone was one of the gentler moments on a record that moved between quiet ballads and fuller pop productions. And its simplicity is what distinguishes it from the surrounding material. Barry, Robin, and Maurice Gibb could harmonize in a way that very few groups have matched across the entire history of popular music. When a song is built around that ability without embellishment, the result sits outside any specific era or trend. Alone is that kind of song. Number 2. This Is Where I Came In by Bee Gees. This Is Where I Came In was the title track of the Bee Gees' final studio album, released in April 2001. It was their last album as a trio. Maurice Gibb died in January 2003 following complications from a twisted intestine at the age of 53. Robin Gibb died in May 2012 at the age of 62 from colorectal cancer. Barry Gibb is the surviving member of the group that began in Brisbane, Australia in 1958 when the 3 brothers were children. The song itself is an elegiac piece of music, a meditation on cycles and return, on the idea of a life's experience circling back to its beginning. The title phrase suggests continuity more than conclusion. And whether that was intentional or simply a coincidence of timing, it functions in retrospect as a goodbye that did not announce itself as one. The album was produced by Barry Gibb and Carl Richardson and reached number 4 in the UK. The critical reception was warmer than much of what the band had received in the previous decade, with several reviewers noting that the songs on This Is Where I Came In had a maturity and a settledness that felt earned rather than performed. The title track is the most explicitly reflective piece on the record, and it is one of the few moments in the Bee Gees' catalog where the passage of time is the subject rather than simply the backdrop. Number 1. Nights on Broadway, Orchestral Version by Bee Gees. The version of Nights on Broadway that most people know is the album track and single from Main Course, the song where Barry Gibb discovered his falsetto. But there is a significantly different orchestral version, recorded for the Here at Last, Bee Gees, live album released in 1977. That recording extends and restructures the song to give Barry's falsetto more room within a fuller arrangement, slowing the tempo just enough to let the performance breathe. The live version reached number 37 on the Billboard Hot 100 when released as a single in 1977, giving the song a second chart life 2 years after its original release. More importantly, the orchestral live arrangement demonstrates something the studio recording does not make as fully apparent: that the Bee Gees were operating with a level of musical sophistication that resisted easy categorization. They were not a rock band, not a soul group, not a pop act in the conventional sense, and not simply a disco act despite the era's most dominant commercial association. The orchestral live version of Nights on Broadway sounds like all of those things, and none of them, delivered by 3 brothers who had been refining the same harmonic blend since childhood, in a room full of string players in 1977, at the beginning of the most commercially successful period of their careers. If any of these sent you looking for a Bee Gees deep cut you hadn't heard before, drop it in the comments. Hit like and subscribe. There's more where this came from.